Welcome. In this video, we are going to review Class Echo Airspace. But before we begin, when flying, we must always be professional. So here are some tips to consider. Fly by the FAA's rules and regulations. Don't be the pilot that violates a rule that injures someone or is a blatant violation that makes the news. There are often news stories that will put a shadow over the drone industry. It is bad enough when a pilot follows the rules and there is still a public outcry because the public is unaware of drone regulations and laws. News outlets and social media posts almost never get it right, thus promoting drone hysteria in the public. Always fly with a safety-first mindset. You don't want to injure someone or damage property. Reckless behavior or horseplay often leads to an accident. As a professional drone pilot, you should consider yourself an aviator. You undoubtedly have worked hard to acquire your remote pilot rating. So be proud of this accomplishment. This means you must constantly be in a learning mode. This industry is evolving rapidly. There will always be changes in technologies and regulations. When you see an opportunity, educate the general public. Many do not know drone laws as we do. For example, that recreational pilots may need a TRUST certificate, and that a professional pilot must have a Part 107 certificate. That our aircraft are required to be registered for professional operations. Most of all, that the FAA has authority over the national airspace. If you need to fly a non-emergency professional mission over or near someone's property, take the time to let folks know your intent beforehand. More often than not, this will prevent a confrontation with someone while your aircraft is in the air. Look and communicate professionally. Flip-flops, sleeveless t-shirts, and shorts are not the best dress choices for professional drone pilots on the job. Remember, you must garner trust, that you are not up to anything nefarious or intending to spy on anyone. You would be surprised how many law-abiding citizens don't want to be spied on for whatever reason. Above all, remember you should not take off or land on someone's property without permission. When you witness a drone pilot violating rules or flying in an unsafe manner, with respect, approach them calmly. Don't come off as a drone cop or a know-it-all. Remember, your intentions are to educate folks in a way to protect the drone industry. Once again, respectfully and in a non-confrontational manner, introduce yourself, then professionally make your concerns known. If their actions are egregious enough and warrant further action, contact law enforcement and let them address the issue. We all can learn from others, so do not resist criticism. You can learn a lot from other pilots in the right situation. You have been contracted for the job and likely have permission to be there. Judge the situation and act accordingly. If the criticism appears too confrontational or you feel threatened, just retreat and come back later. In this video, the learning objectives are to understand the different types of Class Echo airspaces, how Class Echo airspaces interact with other airspaces, how Class Echo airspaces affect drone operations, how to check Class Echo airspaces on sectional charts, and the use of LANs, and finally, we will present a few common sample questions for you. There are a few tools that you will need to use to study for your Part 107 exam. First, a hard copy of the Airman Knowledge Testing Supplement for Sport Pilot, Recreational Pilot, Remote Pilot, and Private Pilot. Test-taking tips for airspace. You will utilize the Airman Knowledge Testing Supplement for Sport Pilot, Recreational Pilot, Remote Pilot, and Private Pilot booklet during your 14 CFR Part 107 examination. Review it completely as the answers to many exam questions are contained within its pages. During my first test, I was able to find an answer to a question that I had never been exposed to. I was able to find the answer in the test supplement. It was like phoning a friend. As far as airspace is concerned, the most important page to know the location of and understand its content is the sectional aeronautical chart key, Legend 1, page 11. Many airspace questions can be answered right here, especially if you have studied the materials. In general, find a source for practice testing. Practice often until you master the material. For reading chart examples in the test supplement, I also suggest you purchase a sheet magnifier or a magnifying glass. You have to go old school here because you are using a hard copybook. You will not be allowed to have your cell phone to blow up an image or use its calculator. Remember, this publication's FAA reference number is FAA CT 8082H. Second, find a Part 107 study guidebook that meets your needs. There are several on the market. A quick web search should provide you several options. Some even offer online practice tests and software. Be sure to find study materials that meet your personal needs. Put yourself in what I call study test mode. Study a while, then take a practice test or two. Repeat this process again and again until you consistently make high scores, then go take your exam. Finally, the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. This is always a great reference and study source. It is available in print form from various sources and online at the FAA's website on the Aviation Handbooks and Manuals page. If you plan to purchase a copy, make sure that it is a color version. There are black and white versions offered at a lower price. However, I personally find them difficult to use. FAA H808325C. Remember, this is a handbook for all pilots. It provides you information that is outside the requirements for a 14 CFR Part 107 certification. Mostly that we fly under visual flight rules, not instrument flight rules. Before we begin to dive into the details of Class Echo, let's discuss the safety and regulatory processes involved before you take off. You should always utilize a pre-flight process and pre-flight checklist to ensure safety and compliance with FAA regulations. Here are a few points that you should include in any pre-flight checklist. 1. The location and security of the primary and secondary takeoff and landing sites. We refer to these as LZs or landing zones. 2. What are the airspace authorization requirements? Is our flight ground within the regulatory limits around an airport? If so, can I be granted access to the airspace? Is there a NOTAM, Notices to Air Missions or Notices to Airmen, or TFRs, Temporary Flight Restrictions, in place? Resources are Before You Fly or any Lance tool, UAS facilities maps, sectional charts, chart supplements for affected airports. This is good to have on hand to provide contact information at nearby airports or heliports. Check the website 1-800-WX-brief.com. 3. What safety and regulatory hazards are in the flight ground? Obstacles such as buildings, towers, and trees. Possible intrusions by the public into the area. The safety and security of the team and equipment. 4. Do we have sufficient resources to complete the mission? The capability and availability of the equipment and team to safely complete the mission. 5th, a weather forecast check. There are a few options for your smartphone. I would suggest using a forecast application and a radar application. You should note the current METAR and TAF. Look for wind gusts, precipitation, temperature extremes, cloud cover. 6. Sometimes overlooked are RF interferences, sufficient GPS uplinks for a safe flight. Check the current KP index or geomagnetic storm index, 0 through 9. Above 3 means there may be a possible disruption to GPS reception. 7. As the remote pilot in command, am I safe to fly? Is my aircraft safe to fly? 8. There may be additional items you want to check before you fly as part of your operational procedures. Class Echo Airspace can be the most confusing airspace type for new pilots, either for crewed aviation or remote aviation. Remember, we all share the same airspace, no matter the type of aircraft we fly. I must admit, it was very confusing to me in my earlier days in this business. We hope this video will displace some of the confusion and help you pass your FAA 14 CFR Part 107 exam and receive your UAS rating. For Part 107, I feel it helps to have an understanding of aviation regulations and safety requirements in general. Specifically for Class Echo Airspace. Utilizing this approach may help you understand why airspace types exist and their functions. When we expand beyond the requirements of Part 107, we will flag that content so you will know. To understand airspace, we must translate a two-dimensional image into its three-dimensional concept. A two-dimensional map shown on the left must be translated or visualized as a three-dimensional airspace shown on the right. Airspace is horizontally measured in nautical miles, statute miles, or degrees of latitude or longitude. Airspace is vertically measured by altitude in feet, either above ground level, AGL, or above mean sea level, MSL. All pilots, either flying remotely piloted aircraft or crewed aircraft, must learn this concept to safely fly in the national airspace. As we progress, we will cover this concept in greater detail. Horizontally, the lateral boundaries of the national airspace are the territorial limits of the United States. There is actually no international agreement as to the vertical limit. However, most nations consider it as the Kármán line, or the point where airspace meets outer space. This is somewhere around 100 kilometers, or just above 62 miles above the surface. In a discussion about airspace rights over private property, a FAA representative expressed it this way: "The national airspace is from the blades of grass to outer space, and from border to border, and from sea to sea. We all fly in and share the national airspace, which is regulated by the Federal Aviation Administration." You may be a little confused at this point, so let's take a more in-depth look at those components of airspace that you need to understand to become a drone pilot. First, we will illustrate from the surface up. Class Golf, Class Echo, Domestic en route, Class Echo, Other, and Class Alpha. My first airspace aha moment came when I realized the following concept. This illustration shows a map of the contiguous United States. The national airspace covers the contiguous United States from border to border and out from the coastlines to 12 nautical miles or 14 statute miles. This includes the seabed below it. Class Golf, Class Echo, and Class Alpha all cover this area at different elevations. The following maps will help you understand this concept. The first layer above ground level is Class Golf airspace. This is the area where drone operations can occur. However, airspace must be understood holistically. This information may be beneficial to help you become a knowledgeable pilot, as well as to pass the Part 107 exam. The next layer up, directly above Class Golf, is the first of two layers of Class Echo. This is known as Class Echo Domestic en route. Above that is another layer of Class Echo airspace known as Class Echo Other. Class Echo airspace covers the largest portion of the national airspace and is considered controlled airspace. It includes everything that is not Class Alpha, Class Bravo, Class Charlie, or Class Delta. In some areas, as with Class Golf, Class Echo is not depicted on sectional charts. When it extends down into other airspaces, it is then clearly depicted. Not to worry if this is confusing, we will break it down into further detail as we progress. Above two layers of Class Echo is Class Alpha. Class Alpha is where commercial and military aircraft fly, except when landing and taking off. This is an area that definitely is off limits to small unmanned aircraft, even if you had a drone that was capable. The small unmanned aircraft altitude record has been set and likely won't be attempted again anytime soon. The final layer is above Class Alpha and extends to the Kármán line. This is also Class Echo and is referred to as Class Echo Upper Limits. This is considered to be undefined airspace. Only the military and space agencies venture here, with very few exceptions. In the previous slides, we illustrated how Class Golf, Class Echo, and Class Alpha airspaces horizontally cover the contiguous United States. Now let's look at these airspaces vertically from the ground up. The phrases up to but not including or less than are always important to mention here. You would be stating it incorrectly if you did not use these terms. Sometimes answers to test questions will be phrased in a way that can sound correct, yet are actually wrong. For example, the maximum weight of a UAS is 55 pounds. This is incorrect. It should be stated and understood as less than 55 pounds or up to but not including 55 pounds. Additionally, don't forget the unit descriptions for altitude, above ground level AGL, and mean sea level MSL, and where they apply. Two other phrases that you might see are overlaying airspace and underlaying airspace. For example, what is the underlaying airspace of Class Echo, domestic en route? The first layer above ground level is Class Golf airspace. Recall, this is the airspace where a majority of drone operations occur. This is because our normal maximum altitude is less than 400 feet. AGL, it begins at ground level and rises up to but not including 1,200 feet AGL. However, here is the tricky part. It can follow mountainous terrain up into the Class Echo, domestic en route layer, but it hard stops at up to, but not including 14,500 feet, mean sea level. Remember this concept when you are flying in mountainous areas, as you can easily intrude into Class Echo airspace without realizing it. The next layer up, directly above Class Golf, is Class Echo domestic en route. It begins at 1,200 feet above ground level and extends up to, but not including, 14,500 feet. MSL, the next layer, is Class Echo other airspace. It begins at 14,500 feet, mean sea level, and extends up to, but not including, 18,000 feet. Mean sea level. Above the two Class Echo layers is Class Alpha, from 18,000 feet. Mean sea level up to, but not including, 60,000 feet. MSL, the final layer above Class Alpha, is Class Echo, upper limits, which extends from 60,000 feet. Mean sea level up to the Kármán line. You may not know it yet, but there are actually 7 different subtypes of Class Echo airspace. These are best represented by the acronym SETFOOD. To introduce you to SETFOOD, let us walk through each one verbally, then later we'll dive in deeper and see them graphically and on sectional chart examples. Let's start with the letter S. The letter S represents Class Echo at the surface, or the surface area designated for a Class E airport, depicted with a dashed magenta line. This is usually a dashed magenta circle around an airport. This directly affects drone operations, as this is a no-fly area for UAS aircraft. A Certificate of Authorization, COA, may need to be issued by the FAA before drone operations can occur in this area. Check with the airport's manager or ATC for more information before you fly. Likely to be included in your Part 107 examination. The letter E represents a Class Echo extension at the surface. This is an extension out from the surface area, usually to protect a runway approach to an airport. You may see a Class E extension around other airspace types. Since being at the surface, it is also depicted with a dashed magenta line, but in a rectangular shape, yet it does not surround an airport. This directly affects drone operations, as this is a particularly dangerous no-fly area for UAS aircraft. A Certificate of Authorization, COA, may need to be issued by the FAA before drone operations can occur in this area. Likely to be included in your Part 107 examination. The letter T represents Class Echo transitions. These airspace areas are used for transitioning IFR aircraft to or from terminals and en route airspaces. They do not extend to the surface. A radar transition is depicted with a blue vignette or fuzzy line. This extends down to, but not into, Class Golf and stops at a level of 1,200 feet AGL. This transition type is rare and probably won't be on your Part 107 examination. Next is a Class Echo weather transition. This is depicted with a magenta vignette or fuzzy line around airports. A weather transition extends down into Class Golf to a level of 700 feet AGL. This is the most depicted airspace on sectional charts. They commonly encircle airports, but there are many that have odd shapes. This transition type should be on your Part 107 examination. Underneath transitions is Class G airspace from AGL up to either 700 feet or 1,200 feet. Since both of these airspaces are above 400 feet AGL, Drone operations can typically occur without special permission. Make it part of your processes when close to airports. Always check LANs and submit an airspace request if necessary. The letter F represents Class Echo, Federal Airways. Federal Airways are Class E airspace areas and, unless otherwise specified, extend upward from 1,200 feet above ground level up to, but not including 18,000 feet mean sea level. Federal Airways are depicted by a solid light blue line with a V number, such as V502 or V194, etc. Federal Airways are also well above, 400 feet above ground level. Therefore, drone operations can typically occur without special permission. However, when flying in these areas, you should check LANs and submit an airspace request if required to ensure a safe operation. May be included in your Part 107 examination. The first letter O represents Class Echo, offshore airspace areas, designated for IFR traffic beyond 12 nautical miles offshore. Depicted by a blue zipper line, should not be included in your Part 107 examination. Remember, if you are operating in these areas, you are still in the confines of the national airspace, and all FAA rules apply. The second letter O represents Class Echo Other inside the country airspace. Class Echo Other begins at 14,500 feet mean sea level and extends up to but not including 18,000 feet mean sea level when it is superseded by the Class Alpha layer. However, Class Echo restarts and passes above the Class Alpha layer, which is known as the Class E Other upper limits or undefined. Likely, this will not directly be on your Part 107 examination, as this is well above the limits for drone operations. The letter D represents Class Echo, domestic en route areas. These are Class Echo airspace areas that extend upward from 1,200 feet above ground level to, but not including, 14,500 feet mean sea level. En route domestic airspace areas provide a controlled airspace. In these areas, there is a requirement to provide IFR, en route ATC services when the federal airway system is inadequate. This is the overlaying Class Echo airspace directly above Class Golf, which, if you recall, starts at the surface and extends up to 1,200 feet above ground level. Domestic en route airspace may in some form be on your examination. However, knowing about it is one of those things that may help you to better understand airspace in general. Once again, this is well above the limits for drone operations. As we previously mentioned, Class Echo Other and Class Echo En route Domestic, as well as Class Golf and Class Alpha airspaces, cover the contiguous United States and extend out 12 nautical miles from the coastlines. Knowing the SETFOOD model will make you a more knowledgeable pilot and increase your chances to pass the Part 107 examination. Congratulations, we have already defined two letters of the SETFOOD acronym, the letters O and D. Here again are our layers of Class Golf, Class Echo, and Class Alpha. At the surface, we have three airports. The first one on the left is a private airport in Class Golf airspace with an overlaying Class Echo, domestic en route airspace beginning at 1,200 feet above ground level. Here we see three airports on a sectional chart example. However, only two are actually active and of direct concern to a remote pilot in command. The other one depicted with an X is closed. These are sometimes referred to as Class Golf airports. But this is a bit misleading because if a Class Echo, Class Bravo, or Class Delta airspace doesn't extend all the way to the surface, then the airport is in Class Golf airspace. The most correct statement here is these airports are Class Golf at the surface, with an overlaying Class Echo airspace at 1,200 feet above ground level. In this illustration, we begin to show how the Class Echo airspace above airports function. The first one is known as Class Echo to the surface. On sectional charts, Class Echo at the surface is represented by a dashed magenta line. This is the letter S in the SETFOOD acronym. Since this is to the surface, drone operations cannot occur here without a certificate of authorization, COA and/or from the airport authority. Next, we will look at the first of two transition airspaces. This one is a Class Echo weather transition to 700 feet above ground level. It is depicted by a magenta vignette and usually encircles an airport. Remember, the airspace below this is Class Golf and suitable for drone operations beyond 5 miles of the airport. Check your favorite LANS application to be sure you can safely fly here. When in doubt, call the airport or reach out to the FAA. Be extra vigilant in scanning the sky for aircraft. The second transition is a Class Echo instrument transition to 1,200 feet above ground level. In Class Echo, IFR aircraft are controlled by ATC. This airspace is seen more often in mountain areas with higher elevations. Outside the vignette, Class Echo begins at 1,200 feet above ground level. As a drone pilot, at best you need to know this exists and likely won't be part of your Part 107 examination. This airspace is depicted by a blue vignette. This airspace is also represented by the letter T in the SETFOOD acronym. On a sectional chart example without any other airspaces involved, here is a Class Echo weather transition to 700 feet above ground level. It is depicted by a magenta vignette and usually encircles an airport. This is the most common airspace you will see depicted on sectional charts. Again, the airspace below this is Class Golf to the surface and suitable for drone operations beyond 5 miles of the airport. Don't forget to check the LANS application to be safe and always scan the sky for aircraft. Here is a similar airport with a Class Echo weather transition to 700 feet above ground level. However, this airport also has a Class Echo to the surface depicted with a magenta dashed line. Remember, as a drone pilot, you cannot fly within the dashed lines without special permission. This is an actual sectional chart example showing two Class Echo airports with 700-foot transitions. Note one has an extension to the northeast. This is another sectional chart example showing several Class Echo airports with a 700-foot transition. However, this time we see the Class Echo to the surface depicted on 3 of them. Study these examples carefully. These images illustrate a Class Echo instrument transition airspace with 1,200 feet above ground level, or greater above the surface. This airspace abuts Class Golf airspace. Rarely seen on sectional charts, they are designated for transitioning IFR traffic in Class Echo domestic en route. Designated for areas with an approved instrument procedure. They are depicted with a blue vignette. As a drone pilot, it is good to know about airspaces like these if you happen to encounter them. However, they likely won't be on your Part 107 examination. Here is a Class Echo instrument transition area at 1,200 feet above ground level, shown on a sectional chart. Note the maximum elevation figures, MEF. Inside the vignette, the terrain is 10,100 feet and 10,600 feet. Again, if you are flying a drone in these areas, just be aware of this condition. Here is more information on maximum elevation figures. Elevation figures, MEF, are a type of visual flight rule VFR information that indicates the elevation of the highest geographical feature within a GeoRef quadrangle area. Example, 15 equals 1,500 feet AGL. So far, we have covered 4 letters of the SETFOOD acronym, the letters S, T, D, and one of the O's. Now we can add the letter E for Class Echo, extensions at the surface. They are depicted with a dashed magenta line in a rectangular shape, yet it does not completely surround an airport. This is an extension out from the surface area, usually to protect a runway approach to an airport. Other airspace types can have a Class Echo extension at the surface. Since it is at the surface, this directly affects drone operations. It is a particularly dangerous no-fly area for UAS aircraft, since crewed aircraft are landing or taking off from the airport. A Certificate of Authorization, COA, may need to be issued by the FAA before drone operations can occur in this area, likely to be included in your Part 107 examination. Let us look at a mixed airspace airport on an actual sectional chart. This airport, Northeast Florida Regional SGJ, is a Class Delta, shown within the blue dashed lines. Additionally, there is a Class Echo 700 feet, a GL weather transition surrounding the Class Delta. Finally, two Class Echo extensions at the surface, one to the northwest and one to the southeast. Indicators of a Class Delta are the blue dashed lines encircling the airport, blue airport information text, and the dash box with a number inside. This number indicates the ceiling of the Class Delta airspace. In this example, the number 25 indicates a 2,500-foot mean sea level ceiling. If it contained a minus sign in front of the 25, it would be up to but not including 2,500 feet. MSL. The letter F represents Class Echo, Federal Airways. Federal Airways are Class E airspace areas, and unless otherwise specified, extend upward from 1,200 feet above ground level, up to but not including 18,500 feet mean sea level. Federal Airways are depicted by a solid light blue line with a V number, such as V502 or V194, etc. Federal Airways are well above, 400 feet above ground level. Therefore, drone operations can typically occur without special permission. However, when flying in these areas, you should check LANCE and submit an airspace request if one is required to ensure a safe operation. This may be included in your Part 107 examination. Here we see a federal airway depicted on an example sectional chart. Remember, these are well above 400 feet above ground level. Therefore, drone operations can typically occur under them without special permission. Again, they may be included in your Part 107 examination. To complete the SETFOOD acronym, the final letter O represents Class Echo, offshore airspace areas, designated for IFR traffic beyond 12 nautical miles offshore, depicted by a blue zipper line. Additionally, as stated in the sectional chart key, zipper lines differentiate floors of Class Echo airspace greater than 700 feet, AGL. This should not be included in your Part 107 examination. Remember, if you are operating in these areas, you are still in the confines of the national airspace, and all FAA rules apply. Congratulations! We have completed the SETFOOD model of Class Echo Airspace. The biggest takeaway I had from SETFOOD is how different airspaces interact with each other and why they exist. My intention in producing this video is to make you a more knowledgeable and skilled remote aviation pilot. Above all, help to ensure safer skies for all pilots. We are not finished yet. There are a few more items to cover. Class Echo Summary. Class Echo is normally considered to be controlled airspace. In contrast, Class Golf is uncontrolled. You may see this on your exam. Class Echo exists for those aircraft transitioning from the terminal to en route state. Pilots in Class Echo airspace are responsible for position and separation. A self-announced airport is one that does not have an operating control tower. Pilots self-announce their position and intentions. Therefore, a good best practice for remote pilots in command is to monitor the aircraft around you. You can purchase a scanner radio or a handheld Navcom radio. Tune into the Common Traffic Advisory Frequency CTAF or Unicom frequency when legally operating near airports. Remember, as drone pilots, we are not allowed to communicate on aviation radio frequencies. You must have a crewed aircraft rating and an FCC license. These illustrations depict Class Echo weather minimums. The one for you as a drone pilot to be concerned about is on the left. Here is what you should remember for your exam: 3 statute miles of visibility, 2,000 feet horizontal limit, and a 500-foot ceiling. The ceiling limit will likely affect your operations the most. Horizontally, fog is considered to be a cloud. You do not need to be too concerned with the vertical limit of 1,000 feet, as that is normally too high for remote aviation flights. However, in the high elevations of the mountains, it could be a concern. Now it is time for a few sample questions. These are examples taken from various sources on the internet. These are likely not actual questions that will appear in your exam. It is best that you use your test supplement for this exercise. Pause the video, develop an answer, then resume to see if you are correct. First question. Refer to Figure 80. What do the blue shaded lines indicate throughout this sectional excerpt? A. Military training routes. B. Airline corridor. C. Victor Airways. The correct answer is C. Victor Airways. Victor Airways are also referred to as Federal Airways. The V number and light blue line are what you are looking for on this chart, as a giveaway. Remember, they are 8 nautical miles wide, from 1,200 feet AGL up to but not including 18,000 feet MSL. Next question. You will need your test supplement for this one. Refer to Figure 20, Area 1. The NALF Fentress NFE Airport is in what type of airspace? A. Class Charlie. B. Class Echo. C. Class Golf. The correct answer is B. Class Echo Airspace. NALF Fentress NFE Airport is surrounded by dashed magenta lines. This means it is Class Echo at the surface. Next question. Uncontrolled airspace is A. Class G airspace. B. For flying VFR only. C. Primarily for instrument flight operations. The correct answer is A. Class G airspace. Remember, Class Alpha, Class Bravo, Class Delta, Class Charlie, and Class Echo are all controlled airspaces. Next question. You will need your test supplement for this question. Refer to Figure 26, Area 1. The airspace overlying Tomlinson Airport is A. Class G up to 18,000. B. Class E from 1,200 up to but not including 18,000. C. Class E from 700 up to but not including 18,000. The correct answer is B. Class E from 1,200 feet up to but not including 18,000 feet MSL. Remember, the key word in this question is overlaying. They are inquiring about the overlaying airspace above the airport. Yes, the airport is from AGL up to 1,200 feet. AGL Class G. Overlying the Class G are 2 layers of Class Echo. Up to, but not including 18,000 feet means sea level. Tricky question, right? This question made me realize I didn't know as much about Class Echo as I once thought I did. Here we see a question about the same airport. Refer to Figure 26, Area 1. Identify the airspace over Tomlinson Airport, 8J7. A. Class G airspace. Surface up to but not including 1,200 feet. AGL Class E airspace. 1,200 feet AGL up to but not including 18,000 feet MSL. B. Class G airspace. Surface up to but not including 18,000 feet mean sea level. C. Class G airspace. Surface up to but not including 700 feet mean sea level. Class E airspace. 700 feet to 14,500 feet mean sea level. As you can see, answer A is correct. Sometimes you have to look a little deeper, so based on wording and the available answers, A is correct. This one is a little less tricky than the previous. A test-taking tip: read all the available answers, One may be more correct than the others. Next question. You will need your test supplement for this question. Refer to Figure 31. Within what airspace is Coeur d'Alene Pappy Boyington Field located? A. Class B, B. Class E, C. Class D. The correct answer is B. Class E. Were you expecting a map? This question relates to the chart supplement for Coeur d'Alene Pappy Boyington Field. We haven't gone over this until now. Remember that sometimes airspace information can be found on a chart supplement too. During your study process, you may want to review each example in the test supplement. Maps, supplements, METARs, TAFs, etc., which relate to Part 107. Aren't you glad you watched the entire video? Now is a good time to like, share, and subscribe to the Hunter Remote Aviation YouTube channel. Next question. You will need your test supplement for this question. Refer to Figure 71, Area 1. The floor of the Class E airspace above Georgetown Airport, E36, is at A. The surface, B. 700 feet AGL, C. 3,823 feet MSL. The correct answer is C. 3,823 feet MSL. Once again, you must read the question carefully. I know the test has a time limit, but you have to take your time. Here they want to know the floor of the Class E over Georgetown Airport. There is no magenta vignette to indicate a 700-foot Class E transition. There are no magenta dashed lines to indicate Class E at the surface. So, how can answer C be correct? The MSL elevation for the airport is 2,623 feet MSL, as indicated in the airport information block. The floor of the Class E is 1,200 feet above ground level. 2,623 feet means sea level plus 1,200 feet above ground level. And you get 3,823 feet mean sea level. Trust your knowledge. If you know for sure two answers are wrong, then trust your knowledge and move on, or figure out how to prove the remaining answer right. Sometimes you have to look for the wrong answers first, even if your instincts are to look for the correct answers first. Next question. You know when looking at a chart that the floor of Class E airspace is 700 feet AGL when it's within A. The fuzzy side of the blue vignette, B. The fuzzy side of the magenta vignette, C. The magenta dashed line. B is the correct answer. The fuzzy side of the magenta vignette. This is a Class Echo, weather transition to a Class Golf airport. It is 700 feet above the surface inside the vignette. Next question. With certain exceptions, Class E airspace extends upward from either 700 feet or 1,200 feet AGL2, but does not include A. 10,000 feet MSL, B. 14,500 feet MSL, C. 18,000 feet MSL. The correct answer is C. 18,000 feet MSL. Don't forget the two layers of Class Echo airspace. Class Echo domestic en route, which stops at 14,500 feet MSL, and Class Echo Other, which stops at 18,000 feet MSL. Well, we have come to the end of our journey. You may have gotten more information than you need to become a Part 107 rated pilot. However, I hope this holistic view of Class Echo clears some of your confusion. Regardless, if you are studying to take the exam or if you are an experienced Part 107 rated pilot, I truly hope this video was a benefit to you. Please leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Good luck, and remember, safety and regulatory compliance comes first over mission priorities.
Thanks for watching. Please feel free to use this content in your public safety remote aviation training programs. Help us improve by commenting. Don't forget to like, share, and hit the notification bell to subscribe to receive future content. You can message me on Facebook at Hunter Remote Aviation and at Bill Hunter on LinkedIn.